Welcome back, guys. Happy to have you back. Winter break has been really sad without y'all. It's been really boring. So I hope you're having a good time in your host homes, catching up over what you did for the break. And so let's dive right into what we're talking about. We've been going through, or we started a series called Vintage, discovering God's grace in the Old Testament. I think what we talked about was what makes the difference between something being old and something being vintage. And so usually things that are vintage are something that is rediscovered, that has been hidden or covered up, that we now find worthy or valuable. And so I even mentioned a story about how my grandmother, she used these Ray-Bans that were just like extremely rare in mint condition as her gardening glasses because she didn't realize the value that she had with these that are probably worth hundreds of dollars now. And I think for a lot of us, we treat the Old Testament like that. We don't see the worth and the value that we have in it. And there's so much things going on in the Old Testament. We have deep narratives, we have battles, we have intrigue, deep symbolism, we have even humor and miracles. But most importantly, what we have in the Old Testament are promises. And so we're going to spend our semester looking at these specific promises that God has given us and see His grace throughout the Old Testament. And some of these promises are meant more for you today than the first audience hearing it for the first time. And we don't have to go very far to look for these promises. We see them actually in the start, at the very beginning. Where we all still are in our Bible reading plan probably is that Genesis 1-3 area. And so the whole main point of this story is of creation and the fall of man is this promise that evil will ultimately fall and Christ will have final victory. I think if you want to subtitle the book of Genesis, it could be put, "Welcome to the story of Jesus." Now, that may be a little confusing because Jesus' name is not mentioned once in the book of Genesis, but we can see through the promises that He is clearly there the whole time. And so our first thing that we looked at is let the fact that God put everything in motion through just merely speaking, put our lives in perspective. I think for a lot of us, we think of creation and we want to get caught in the weeds of how everything was formed, and you get a little bit of that, but the purpose of the creation story is showing you more about who the Creator is. That merely that God spoke everything into existence should be celebrated. I think we even brought up the point of trying to speak anything into existence right now in your life. I can guarantee you're gonna fail. Like there's a 0% chance that happens. I think the closest thing that we have to that is speaking to Alexa. We'll be like, "Alexa, play Bon Jovi," and then Alexa will tell us that it's 78 degrees outside. And so that's the thing. We can't even do that right. So I think that gives us actually really good perspective on the difference between us and a God that is worthy to be worshiped and worthy to be praised. And so everything that God created was good. That's a common theme that you see in Genesis 1. But there's something that was just a huge disruption to all of that in Genesis 2. And so our next point was that sin breaks the world and all of us from what we were actually intended to be. And so we had one command in the garden. God says, "Do not eat from this tree. If you do, the best way I can describe it is that you will die. You'll be cut off from life." Sadly, Adam and Eve in Genesis 3, they chose to do that. They were deceived by the serpent and they ate of the fruit, and it cut them off from humanity. And so that there is not only did they sin against their God, but Adam and Eve did not know the brokenness that would follow, we still experience today. You and I, we have never really experienced what a Genesis 1 and 2 world looks like. I think for a lot of us too, we look at Adam and Eve and we're just shocked. Like, I can't believe they did that. They had one simple rule, but here's the thing, and we said it last week too, is you have probably done the same thing today that Adam and Eve did in that garden right then and there. See, our sin is the same. When we go against God, whether it was a lustful thought, whether it was greed, whether it was our own selfishness, we are holding the same piece of fruit that they are in the garden, saying, "My way is better than God's way. I know better for myself." And because of that, we all feel this brokenness of being what we should be and knowing that we're not. And that kind of leads to our last point, that the freedom from the brokenness and the curse of sin, because that's what we're all in. We're all in the curse of sin, can only be found in the power of the one who is supreme to take it away. And so we saw that in Colossians 1, 15 through 20. We see it in Genesis 3:17, this messianic promise that one day God will send someone to crush the head of the serpent. He will bruise his heel, but you will crush his head. And we get that promise. That is the first promise of Jesus to come in Scripture. And that is why this is the start of the story of Jesus, because he is the only one that can make this world right once again. And so the brokenness that you and I feel, it can all be fixed and restored, and we can be healed through the power of Jesus. Colossians 1:15 speaks of his supremacy. It says Jesus was the creator of all things. Everything in this universe runs by him and through him and for him. And God was pleased to dwell amongst his people through his son. So you and I feel the weight of this brokenness, and a lot of times we feel like, how can anyone fix this? But the same person that spoke the universe into existence, he can look at you and easily fix any of our brokenness tonight. And we see the promises of that time and time again in Scripture, and it's promises given to you now that you can live in the fullness of that. And so that's a short rundown of what we talked about, and hopefully y'all talk about a lot more things. So thanks, guys.